Hello friends, I am Aditi. Welcome to my channel Library Mouse. Today I am going to read a book, How to Develop Self-Confidence and Influence People by Public Speaking by Dale Carnegie. This book contains 12 chapters, so let's continue with chapter 11, How to Interest Your Audience. This page you are reading now, this sheet of paper you are looking at, it is very ordinary, isn't it? You have seen countless thousands of such pages. It seems dull and insipid now. But if I tell you a strange fact about it, you are almost sure to be interested. Let us see. This page seems like solid matter as you look at it now. But in reality, it is more like a cobweb than solid matter. The physicist knows it is composed of atoms. And how small is an atom? We learned in chapter 10 that there are as many atoms in one drop of water as there are drops of water in the Mediterranean Sea. That there are as many atoms in one drop of water as there are blades of grass in all the world. And the atoms that make this paper are composed of what? Still smaller things called electrons and protons. These electrons are all rotating around the central proton of the atom, as far from it, relatively speaking, as the moon is from the earth, and they are swinging through their orbits, these electrons of this tiny universe, at the inconceivable speed of approximately 10,000 miles a second. So the electrons that compose the sheet of paper you are holding have moved since you began reading this very sentence a distance equal to that which stretches between New York and Tokyo. And only 2 minutes ago you may have thought this piece of paper was still and dull and dead. But in reality it is one of God's mysteries. It is a veritable cyclone of energy. If you are interested in it now, it is because you have learned a new and a strange fact about it. There lies one of the secrets of interesting people. This is a significant truth, one that we ought to profit by in our everyday intercourse. The entirely new is not interesting. The entirely old has no attractiveness for us. We want to be told something new about the old. You cannot, for example, interest an Illinois farmer with a description of the cathedral at Bourges or the Mona Lisa. They are too new to him. There is no tie-up to his old interests, but you can interest him by relating the fact that farmers in Holland till land below the level of the sea and dig ditches to act as fences and build bridges to serve as gates. Your Illinois farmer will listen open-mouthed while you tell him that Dutch farmers keep the cows during the winter under the same roof that house the family, and sometimes the cows look out through lace curtains at driving snows. He knows about cows and fences, new slates you see on old things, lace curtains for a cow. He'll exclaim, "I'll be dogged," and he will retail that a story to his friends. Here is another talk as you read it. See if it interests you. If it does, do you know why? How sulfuric acid affects you. Most liquids are measured by the pint, quarter, gallon or barrel. We ordinarily speak of quarters of wine, gallons of milk and barrels of molasses. When a new oil gusser is discovered, we speak of its output as so many barrels per day. There is no liquid, however, that is manufactured and consumed in such large quantities that the unit of measurement employed in the ton. This liquid is sulfuric acid. It touches you in your daily life in a score of ways. If it were not for sulfuric acid, your car would stop and you would go back to old Dobbin and the buggy, for it is used extensively in the refining of kerosene and gasoline, the electric lights that illuminate your office, that shine upon your dinner table, that shows you the way to bed at night, would not be possible without it. When you get up in the morning and turn on the water for your bath and use a nickel plated bucket which required sulfuric acid in its manufacture. It was required also in the finishing of your enamel tub. The soap you use has possibly been made from greases or oils that have been treated with the acid your towel has made it acquaintance before you made the acquaintance of your towel. The bristles in your hairbrush have required it, and your celluloid comb could not have been produced without it. Your razor, no doubt, has been pickled in it after annealing. You put on your underwear, you button up your outer garments, the blazer, the manufacturer of dyes and the dryer himself used it. The button maker possibly found the acid necessary to complete your buttons. The tanner used sulfuric acid in making the leather for your shoes, and it serves us again when we wish to polish them. You come down to breakfast, the cup and saucer, if they be other than plain white, could not have come into being without it. It is used to produce the gilt and other ornamented coloring. Your spoon, knife and fork have seen a bath of sulfuric acid if they be silver plated. The wheat of which your bread or rolls are made has possibly been grown by the use of a phosphate fertilizer, whose manufacture rests upon this acid. If you have buckwheat, cakes and syrup, your syrup needed it, and so on through the whole day. Its work affects you at every turn. Go where you will, you cannot escape its influence. We can neither go to war without it, nor live in peace without it. So it hardly seems possible that this acid, so essential to mankind, should be totally unfamiliar to the average man, but such is the case. The three most interesting things in the world. What would you say they are? The three most interesting subjects in the world: sex, property and religion. By the first we can create life, by the second we maintain it, by the third we hope to continue it in the world to come. But it is our sex, our property, our religion that interests us. Our interests swarm about our own egos. We are not interested in a talk on how to make wills in Peru, but we may be interested in a talk entitled How to Make Our Wills. We are not interested, except perhaps out of curiosity, in the religion of the Hindu, but we are vitally interested in a religion that ensures us unending happiness in the world to come. When the late Lord Northcliffe was asked what interests people, he answered with one word, and that word was themselves. Northcliffe ought to have known, for he was the wealthiest newspaper owner in Great Britain. Do you want to know what kind of person you are? Now we are on an interesting topic. We are talking about you. Here is a way for you to hold the mirror up to your real self and see you as you really are. What your reveries? What do we mean by reveries? Let Professor James Harvey Robinson answer. We are quoting from The Mind in the Making. We all appear to ourselves to be thinking all the time during our waking hours, and most of us are aware that we go on thinking while we are asleep, even more foolishly than when wake up. When uninterrupted by some partial issues, we are engaged in what is now known as a reverie. This is our spontaneous and favorite kind of thinking. We allow our ideas to take their own course, and this course is determined by our hopes and fears, our spontaneous desires, their fulfillment or frustrations, by our likes and dislikes, our loves and hates and resentments. There is nothing else anything like so interesting to ourselves as ourselves. All thought that is not more or less laboriously controlled and directed will inevitably circle about the beloved ego. It is assuming and pathetic to observe this tendency in ourselves and in others. We lean politely and generously to overlook this truth, but if we dare to think of it, it blazes forth like the noontide sun. Our reveries form the chief index of our fundamental character. They are a reflection of our nature as modified by often hidden and forgotten experiences. The reverie doubtless influences all our speculations in its persistent tendency to self-magnification and self-justification, which are its chief preoccupations. So remember that the people you are to talk to spend most of their time when they are not concerned with the problems of homemaking or casework or business, in thinking about and justifying and glorifying themselves. Remember that the average person will be more concerned about the cook leaving than about Italy paying her debts to the United States. He will be more brought up over a dull razor blade than over a revolution in South America. A woman's own toothache will distress her more than an earthquake in Asia destroying 500,000 lives. She would rather listen to you say some nice thing about her than hear you discuss the 10 greatest men in history. How to be a good conversationalist. The reason so many people are poor conversationalists is that they talk about only the things that interest them, that may be deadly boring to others. Reverse the process. Lead the other person into talking about his interest, his business, his golf score, his success, or if it is a mother, her children. Do that and listen intently, and you will give pleasure. Consequently, you will be considered a good conversationalist, even though you have done very little of the talking. Mr. Harold Delight of Philadelphia made an extraordinarily successful speech at a banquet which marked the final session of a public speaking course. He talked about each man in turn around the entire table, told how he had talked when the course started, how he had improved, recalled the talks various members had made, the subjects they had discussed. He mimicked some of them, exaggerated their peculiarities, had everyone laughing, had everyone pleased. With such material he could not possibly have failed. It was absolutely ideal. No other topic under the blue dome of heaven would have so interested that group. Mr. Dweck knew how to handle human nature, an idea that won 2 million readers. Some years ago, the American magazine enjoyed an amazing growth. Its sudden leap in circulation became one of the sensations of the publishing world. The secret was the late John M. Siddall and his ideas. When I first met Siddall, he had charge of the interesting people department of that periodical. I had written a few articles for him, and one day he sat down and talked to me for a long time. People are selfish, he said. They are interested chiefly in themselves. They are not very much concerned about whether the government should own the railroads, but they do want to know how to get ahead, how to draw more salary, how to keep healthy. If I were editor of this magazine, he went on, I would tell them how to take care of their teeth, how to take baths, how to keep cool in summer, how to get a position, how to handle employees, how to buy homes, how to remember, how to avoid grammatical errors, and so on. People are always interested in human stories. So I would have some rich man tell how he made $1 million in real estate. I would get prominent bankers and presidents of various corporations to tell the stories of how they battled their ways up from the rank to power and wealth. Shortly after that, Siddall was made editor. The magazine then had a small circulation, was comparatively a failure. Siddall did just what he said he would do. The response, it was overwhelming. The circulation figures climbed up to 200,000, 3, 4, 500,000. Here was something the public wanted. Soon, 1 million people a month were buying it. Then 1.5 million. Finally, 2 millions. It did not stop there, but continued to grow for many years. Siddall appealed to the selfish interest of his readers, the kind of speech material that always holds attention. You may possibly bore people if you talk about things and ideas, but you can hardly fail to hold their attention when you talk about people. Tomorrow, there will be millions of conversations floating over fence in the backyard of America, over tea tables and dinner tables. And what will be the predominating note in most of them? Personalities. He said this, Mrs. So and so did that. I saw her doing this, that, and the other. He's making a killing, and so on. I have addressed many gatherings of school children in the United States and Canada, and I soon learned by experience that in order to keep them interested, I had to tell them stories about people. As soon as I became general and dealt with abstract ideas, Johnny became restless and wiggled in his seat. Tommy made a face at someone. Willie threw something across the aisle. I once asked a group of American businessmen in Paris to talk on how to succeed. Most of them praised the homely virtues, preached at, lectured to, and bored their hearers. Incidentally, I recently heard one of the most prominent businessmen in America make this identical mistake in a radio talk on this identical topic. So do club women and traveling lecturers. So I halted this class and said something like this. We don't want to be lectured to. No one enjoys that. Remember, you must be entertaining or we will pay no attention whatever to what you are saying. Also, remember that one of the most interesting things in the world is sublimated, glorified gossip. So tell us the stories of two persons you have known. Tell why one succeeded and why the other failed. We will gladly listen to that, remember it and possibly profit by it. It will also, by the way, be far easier for you to deliver than are these wordy, abstract preachments. There was a certain member of that course who invariably found it difficult to interest either himself or his audience. This night, however, he seized the human story suggestion and told us of two of his classmates in colleges. One of them had been so frugal that he had bought shirts at the different stores in town and made charts showing which one laundered best, wore longest, and gave the most service per dollar invested. His mind was always on pennies. Yet, when he was graduated, it was in engineering college. He had such a high opinion of his own importance that he was not willing to begin at the bottom and work this way up, as the other graduates were doing. Even when the third annual reunion of the class came, he was still making laundry charts of his shirts, while waiting for some extraordinarily good things to come his way. It never came. A quarter of a century has passed since then, and this man, dissatisfied and sourced on life, still holds some minor position. The speaker then contrasted with this failure the story of one of his classmates who had surpassed all expectations. This particular chap was a good mixer. Everyone liked him, although he was ambitious to do big things later. He started as a draftsman, but he was always on the lookout for opportunity. Plans were then being made for the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo. He knew engineering talent would be needed there, so he resigned from his position in Philadelphia and moved to Buffalo. Through his agreeable personality, he soon won the friendship of a Buffalo man with considerable political influence. The two formed a partnership and engaged immediately in the contracting business. They did considerable work for the telephone company, and this man was finally taken over by that concern at a large salary. He became a multi-millionaire, one of the principal owners of Western Union. We have recorded here only the bare outline of what the speaker told. He made his talk interesting and illuminating with a score of assuming and human details. He talked on and on. This man, who could not ordinarily find material for a 3-minute speech, and he was surprised beyond words to learn when he stopped that he had held the floor on this occasion for half an hour. The speech had been so interesting that it seemed short to everyone. It was this student's first real triumph. Almost everyone can profit by this incident. The average speech would be far more appealing if it were rich and replete with human interest stories. The speaker ought to attempt to make only a few points and to illustrate them with concrete cases. Such a method of speech building can hardly fail to get and hold attention. If possible, these stories ought to tell of struggles, of things fought for and victorious won. All of us are tremendously interested in fights and combats. There is an old saying that all the world loves a lover. It doesn't. What all the world loves is a scrap. It wants to see two lovers struggling for the hand of one woman. As an illustration of this fact, read almost any novel, magazine story, or go to see almost any film drama. When all the obstacles are removed and the reputed hero takes the so-called heroine in his arms, the audience begin reaching for their hats and coats. 5 minutes later, the sweeping women are gossiping over their broom handles. Almost all magazine fiction is based on this formula. Make the reader like the hero or heroine. Make them or her long for something intentionally. Make that something seem impossible to get. Show how the hero or heroine fights and gets it. The story of how a man battled in business or profession against discouraging odds and won is always inspiring, always interesting. A magazine editor once told me that the real inside story of any person's life is entertaining. If one has struggled and fought, and who hasn't? His story, if correctly told, will appeal. There can be no doubt of that. Thank you so much for listening it, and I hope it is understandable to you. If you enjoy watching my videos, do like, subscribe and share with your family and friends. Thank you.